Hey everybody, welcome back to another game development live stream. I'm Geoff from Lost Decade Games, and we're back with more Unity game development, specifically 2D. To start things off today, I just upgraded Sprite Tile to the latest version. Sprite Tile is a tiling system that we use from the Unity Asset Store. You've probably seen it on previous streams, but if you don't know what it looks like, this is kind of the tile editor that we use for this prototype. Anyways, it's kind of cool because I was waiting for a fix. I don't know if you remember from a previous stream, but we're having some issues with collision. So in specific, these wall colliders here, they weren't acting quite right in a couple different scenarios. One was that just initially building the map the way that I am, which is by piecing together these rooms, I had to go through and loop through all the tiles and set the collision flags manually, and that's something that got fixed. The other thing was that we were seeing the levels, the level geometry, the colliders persist across level reloads. I don't know if that's fixed, so we're going to give that a test real quick, and we're also just going to say hello to the chat room. And then I'll check back again later for questions or whatever. But first, we are going to take a look and see if some of these bugs actually got fixed. So the first thing we need to do, actually, still a little bit horsey. Got a cough drop, so I'm good to go. Oh, actually, one more thing. I wanted to say that A Wizard's Lizard, which is our game on Steam, is 50% off right now as part of the Steam summer sale. So you can go grab that for less than $5. So check it out. And self-promo aside, right now I have the map generator hard-coded to use a seed of 1, which that's probably not that great. So we're gonna look. I have a random class that I've been using here. Let's just say random.range. Say 1,000, and then just make sure that that's sufficiently randomized, at least for our purposes right now. Alright, that looks different. Got the warp zone over here, that collider dealy over there, and where's the button for this particular version? I don't know. Maybe it's nowhere. That'll be kind of tragic. Let's take a look at another one. Oh, we got the start. This looks like the same layout. That is disturbingly similar. Oh yeah. Something's definitely going on there. Let's not use the seeded random. Say Unity engine dot random dot range, not dot. Yes, Unity. I think I can just do that. 0 to 1,000. Let's see if that works any better. It's possible that there could be a bug in my deterministic level generation. Okay, that looks different. It's kind of like a plus sign-ish. This rectangle down here. Okay, yeah, these are definitely different. So that's good. Excuse the sore throat. Let's see. So there's the exit. Where's the button on this particular map? having a hard time finding that specific piece. But I think what I'm going to do for now, just to make this easier to debug, is to turn off the pressure plate. Or no, turn off the toggle for now. That code really needs to be rewritten anyway. Because really what I want to test is whether or not the room geometry is going to bug out in between loads. So I'm just going to go to the right here. We got Rog with all those little gizmos on him. Wasn't Gizmo the name of the thing from Gremlins? I think it might have been. Anyway, here's our warp zone. Now we're in the second floor. Which, yep. If you see down here, big chunk of our colliders are missing. So there's something going on with that. I'm not exactly sure what it would be. Because if you look like this level is actually quite a bit, not quite a bit different, but it's definitely a little bit different. There's a room here, and a room here. And then these other rooms, like nothing in those rooms. So you can kind of tell that, these colliders are left over from the previous level. And they really shouldn't be. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but maybe we'll figure it out later. Anyways, that was our sprite tile update. Oh, there is an error. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Argument out of range. Oh, yeah. Something about making an item with collider. I'll have to check into that later. See what's going on in chat. Yeah, E3 is a little bit of a stiff competition. So, could be that it's a, small stream. That's okay. Appreciate everyone that's stopping by. So, looks like we got Matt and Yelik Nuo. Thanks for joining. So, today we're going to work on some more dungeon generation. One of my favorite things. Basically, as I refine the stuff that's here and extend it to do more stuff. And I think I mentioned last week, what I'm trying to do is consolidate some of the dungeon generation stuff into this level builder file, get it out of the main kind of level controller runtime that kind of does stuff like listens for, warp events and things like that to know how to change levels. So there's a system I had started on, this concept of room populators, and in the HTML5 world of a Wizard's Lizard, this room populators file was essentially a bunch of functions, and the functions were passed a room, and then the room, or that function would then add things to the room. In this case, though, I don't think we want to do it exactly that way. I think what we want to do is we want to generate, one, we want the room populators to be flexible, but we also want them to be a little bit easier to create instead of having to write a function every time you want a new room populator, which isn't the worst, but I think we can do it in a more data-driven way. Something where you can just define the objects that you want in the room, and then it'll create a list and then pass it back. So I'm thinking maybe that we want to do here is actually modify our dungeon data structure. So this is what gets generated. You have a dungeon with a width and height, and it has a collection of rooms, and then those rooms all have properties, like which other rooms they're connected to and what type of room it is. Like it could be a start room or an end room or what have you. And so the room structure looks like this. It's either active or not active. It's got X and a Y position. It's got a type. It's got this variable called interest, and the interest is supposed to be, but not quite yet, controlling the intensity of the dungeon. So, you know, there's supposed to be like an interest curve, ramp up and ramp down, and ramp up and ramp down. And there's a few things related to keys, and then the children, which rooms are connected. But I think we also want a collection of just data about objects in the room. And that's where the stuff would come in. So in that room populator, let's look at the room populator definition. So we got the room populator object, which is actually very close to what we'll be using. But I'm going to create another public class room object, and it's going to have a, call it prefab, or sorry, public string prefab, which is really just a path to the prefab, because we load everything dynamically. And then we're going to want a public X and a public Y, which are going to be the location of that object in the room. And then we're going to have this be a public list of room objects equal to new list room object. And then maybe we can add like a sugar function here, like public void add object, which will be string prefab into X into Y. And this will say, oh, this needs a variable name, doesn't it? I always forget that in C#. We'll call it objects, and then we'll say objects.add new room object. And I think what we can do with this syntax is just do that. And I think we can say prefab is equal to prefab, x is equal to x, y is equal to y. We'll see if my C# object literal knowledge is correct. Let's clear that. Oh, it didn't create a syntax error, so that is a good first sign. So in the populate room, it's already getting the populator info. And so, for example, populator start has a rug in it, and the end has a rug, and the challenge room has a rug. And then they have specific templates. So that was the first pass, was making sure that I could control the templates that are used for a room. So for the generic rooms, there's a basically a wildcard symbol that allows it to just randomize the template and the insert for the room. But for some of the other ones, I'm going to want to have either specific control, or it could just be like a subset, like only A, B, or C, or whatever. But that's what controls the room template, because I want the start rooms to be, a particular way sometimes. But I also want these objects to exist there. So after we have the room populator stuff, so the room populator creates this object with a collection of objects, room populator objects. And so really all we need to do, this gets the room. And then all these coordinates are going to be local to the room. So after we've put the inserts in and all that stuff, we should say for each, this is going to be room populator object, oops, obj in, what do we call this variable? Populator dot objects. And then we'll just debug log this out for a second to make sure that it's actually showing us what we want. So we're going to say obj dot prefab. Oops. Then we'll go back in Unity and we will let's see, is that the actual line of the arrows? Yeah, it is. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. I guess it's not always. I guess we can say if populator.objects is not equal to null, then we'll do that. Let's see if that works. Yep. Great, so rug. Cool. That's doing most of what we want so far. So now we're just going to say room dot add object. I'll say populator, no, object prefab, object dot x, object dot y. One of the other things that I'm going to want to do with this at some point is have kind of custom property overrides, but I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to structure that just yet, so that for any given object you could pass in some override parameters. I made a lot of use of that in a wizard, so I'm kind of wondering how I'm going to approach that with Unity's slightly more restrictive typing. Something I've heard or read a couple places about Unity prefabs is that you're better off just creating a new prefab for each different configuration of thing that you want, even if it's similar. So for example, something might be like these pressure plates that we have, and the pressure plates, there's some different properties on here on this this button script where you can say, is it something that can be deactivated? Should it toggle and exit? But otherwise the behavior is the same. So instead of saying like I want a pressure plate and then I also want to check these two boxes or uncheck them or whatever, it might be better to just have a different prefab that has those as the default values the way you want it, and then you don't have to worry about it. So I found that interesting. That might be the way to go in this situation. So let's catch up and chat real quick. Is it just Matt? Wow, it's just Matt. It's like LostCast, but Matt can't respond to me, so it's like better than LostCast, sort of. Yeah, definitely. It's better to have the prefabs pre-built the way you want than to try and override their properties dynamically, it seems. That always kind of was wonky. We just really abused the heck out of merging hash tables in JavaScript. So anyways, now that we've attached those object definitions to the room that we're currently working on, now what we need to do is instead of this file over here being in charge of placing stuff in the rooms, really all it needs to do is just look at the list of things in the room and put them where they need to be. So basically I'm going to first, we're just going to comment out a bunch of these current things because we're going to kind of rewrite some of this stuff. This is like the way that it works right now, which is, you know, not, this switch statement is something I'm trying to replace right now with this new room populators data. Whoa. I think I just hosed my sizing. There we go. That's better. Okay, so we should really get the same thing now, except for there shouldn't be any objects in the level. Also, the character is outside of the level. So that's not exactly what we wanted. Oh, we do need a player start somewhere. So, let's see. I think we'll still have to have this little bit of code somewhere. So after this is all done, we can just say if room.type is equal to start, then do all this junk. Which is really just putting the player in the right room, or the right part of the map. There we go. And now you can see, like, we don't have any lights, we don't have any bad guys, we don't have any traps, we don't have anything. This is just fresh, unadulterated USDA choice dungeon. Looks kind of cool. Looks very empty, though. But it gives us a clean slate with which to test our new object placement code. So, that being said, let's figure out how we're going to do this. So, basically what we have is we have a list of room objects. So for each room object, object in room.objects, we're going to want to place it on the map at a specific spot. And we're also going to need that position of the object to be relative to the room that we're in. The really interesting thing about sprite tile, or really Unity in specific, well, Unity, but sprite tile in specific is probably a better way to say that, is that when you're looking at this map, this lower left corner down here is 0, 0, right? So this right here is 0, 0, and positive y goes up this way, negative y goes down this way, and then negative x goes this way, and positive x goes that way. And so if you're thinking about this world in terms of a tile map, you know, the first tile is going to be 0, 0 here, and then if it increases the x, like 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0, 5, 0, 6, 0, 7, 0, etc. And if you go up, it's like 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0, 5. And so we have to take that into account when we're placing our objects, because my data structures assume that the map goes this way, right? That x, the 0, 0 starts up here, and that x goes this way, which is correct, but y goes increasing down. And that the top left corner is the origin of the map, not the bottom left corner. I could have changed that, but I didn't necessarily want to throw my generator logic backwards just because, you know, sprite telling you to do things a certain way. I think it's better to just convert those coordinates as needed. And it's probably something I just write a function for. But, oh, hey cat. Which I probably will do at some point. So what we want to do here is we want to figure out where in the room we're going to put this thing. So we're going to say this thing has an x, which is equal to, it's going to be the room offset x, room offset x, oh, the cat is jumping all over the place, plus the object.x. And then the y is going to be the same thing. It's going to be room offset y plus object dot y. And then we're going to translate that y, which will be, basically right now I'm calling it sprite tile y, is the map height minus the y minus the room height. We'll see what that actually looks like. It could be really off, but we'll see. And then we're going to say game object manager dot instance dot spawn. Then we're going to give it object dot prefab, and then we're going to give it x and sprite tile y as the parameters. And so, if you're not familiar with the game object manager, it is a class that I wrote that just handles keeping track of all the game objects that I'm spawning into the world, puts them in a nice collection that I can flush and destroy, and so I can, refresh the level and stuff like that. Keeps it nice and clean. So anyway, there's a couple different ways you can spawn it. You can spawn it at 0, 0 just by default. You can spawn it at a specific XY, or you can spawn it on top of a currently existing game object. So let's see if this is going to work at all in any way, shape, or form. Looks like no. No errors. Oh no, never mind. It did work. Except for some reason, it put them in different rooms than I would expect. That is probably a problem with the coordinate translation. So if you look here, this rug is supposed to be in the start room. I'm guessing this is the end room and the challenge room. I'm guessing what I need to do is really just take away this room height. Because minus y would be down. Yes, so really maybe it's map height minus y. Oh, there we go. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. So there it is in the start room. And this would be the end room and the challenge room. Pretty close because it's a small map. But if we go down there, we can turn off gizmos for now. Head down that way. We'll see there's a rug there and a rug there. It's not as good. So that's all data driven now. I mean, it's pretty rudimentary, but if we check out the XML file, this is where it's supposed to be. So let's make sure it's actually at 10.7, or what we think is 10.7 inside the room. And then we can adjust that to make sure we're getting our coordinate translation correct. So let's see. This is going to be, this corner right here would be 0, 0. Let's see, maybe we should turn these back on to get a view of the actual tiles. So this would be 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's on the right x-axis. And then this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think the y is just a little off. 2, 3, let's see. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I think I don't know if we're just having like an off by one error or what. That's how you fix off by one errors. You -1. The other thing I was thinking about doing was making it all relative to the top left corner, but don't always know exactly what it's going to be. You know, some rooms could be smaller, so I have to take it into account. Anyways, that's good enough for now. Might have to come back and tweak that math to make sure it is correct, but 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Should be fine for now. And then we'll just change some of these. Let's see. So that's a lamp, and we'll say this is a houseplant. Just so we can. So we got the rug here, and then if we go here, and we got the lamp and the houseplant, and then the rug. So that's working. Picking up the right data from the right room, and then we'll just mess with the. Let's put this in 0, 0. The rug, and see. Okay, that looks about right. And 0, 1, so that should be. Yep, nice. Perfect. It's a perfect placement for a rug. No better place for a rug than in the wall. Anyways, that seems to work pretty well. So, first thing I want to do is I want to actually put a player start object in the level. I think what I'll do is I'll just create a prefab that just has, you know, essentially it's like an empty prefab. No, I think I need too much more than that. It'll be interesting. But could just see, create a new game object, and we'll call it player start. And it's really just it's got a transform x and y. Don't put anything at -1. Just got a scale of all that stuff. It'll be static probably. I can't see us really moving that around. And then we'll put that in. I guess we could put that in MISC for now, or utils. No, utils is more for like other stuff. So we'll make a prefab out of that called player start, and we'll just erase this. Complete. And then in our player room, we'll say MISC player start at 10.7. Well, maybe I should give it a sprite renderer for now, just so I can see what it looks like. So we'll say sprite renderer, and let's pick something fun. How about, looks good. How about this leaf? Looks good to me. Because we're already using the sewer grate for the exit, so. I'm going to use that. And let's see. Yep, there it is, great. So now we got this player start prefab being put in the room. And now we've got to actually make take out this stuff. It was kind of hacky. And after we're all done populating the rooms, essentially what we want to do is, you know, do this same thing. I don't need to do this right now either. This is the linkage. We will want to do that though at some point, but want to place the player. So we're not really going to get it from the trigger positions in sprite tile anymore. We're actually just going to get it from the position of the player start. So I think that I don't actually use this function very often, but I think it's unity find object with the name of player start is what we want. So could say game object.find. So let's try it this way. Let's say game object player start is equal to game object dot find. I wonder if that's going to work. I wonder if that's a static method. We'll see. Game object dot find. We'll call it player start, and then we'll say set game object position player, and this is going to be player start dot transform dot x, player start dot transform dot y, and we also need to set the camera. Excuse me. Wow, that was a mighty sneeze. Oh, this is already looking at the player's position, so we don't need to change that. So we can get rid of that stuff, and let's see if that works. Who thinks it's going to work? I think it's not going to work because there's a big error on the screen. Oh, right. Because it's transform dot position dot x and transform dot position dot y. Let's see. Oh, because those are floats. So we're just going to cast these to ints. Now, maybe? Yes. Okay, at least it compiles. And no. Object reference not set to reference. Object. Player start. So maybe we don't have the player start thing. So say if player start not equal to null, then we'll do the stuff down here. However, we want to figure out why that's not. I wonder if our game object manager could. Where does it put stuff? It puts stuff on itself, right? So it spawns. Right, game object manager is what has, yeah, the player start. Okay, so I wonder, since this thing is a game object, if we could say game object manager dot instance dot find player start. Do I think that's going to work? No? Okay. But I think something's going on here. Oh no, this is the right function. 342. It's not. Find. Oh, maybe that's just an instance of the script. I think maybe we need to reference the actual game object of the instance. Nope. It really doesn't like trying to evaluate. No? Maybe it's here that it's not set to an instance. Game object manager. Game object. Oops. Find player start. It's like theoretically that should have been created already, right? It's gonna be one of those episodes where I struggle with Unity because I don't know what I'm doing sometimes. I thought you could just do game object, like it's a static method. Yeah, it is a static method. Game object.find string name. Null is returned. It will traverse the hierarchy like a path name. Only returns active game objects. Maybe it has to be at the top level. So maybe it does have to be like game object manager player start. Maybe that's how it works. With a forward slash, right? Yeah. Let's see. Oh, no. Okay. Well, it's not erroring out. That's good, but it kind of seems like we're back. Else debug.log player start cannot be found. Oh no. We'll warn that. Debug.warn. I think that's what's happening. No, it's not. Is it warning? Is it nothing? Oh, I mean there's like a log level. I don't mess with that. It's too much effort. Okay, player start cannot be found. So we have the game object manager and it has the player start. Although maybe it's called player start clone. Is that the problem? Is that the problem? Let's find out. This is inventors in figuring out how GameObject.find actually works. So let's see. Oh, I guess that was it. So see, now I start right on top of it. Okay. Interesting. I feel like I need a slightly better way to reference these. I wonder, can I omit this portion though? Does it work without that game manager prefix? Yes, it does. Okay. Interesting. Well, we'll see. I don't like having to use the clone suffix on there, but it does what I want for now, so we're going to leave it like that for the moment, because that's a little better than we had before. So I'll leave that commented out. We don't need that player placement code anymore from there. We got all the objects from each room being populated into the rooms, so that's good. That guy and zoomed way in. Lamp and the houseplant and our starting thing, so that's good. So the other thing we want to take into account is that we want to have lights and other stuff, some kind of props in the room like we had before. And so the way that was happening previously was that basically I have this collection of lights and this collection of decorations that exist in the level data. So for example here, this says what the lights are, so it basically randomizes between all those lights, of which there are only one, so whatever. And the decorations are all randomized between statues. So we also want our room populators data definitions to, instead of giving it a explicit X and Y, we also want to be able to place it by sprite tile trigger. And so sprite tile triggers, let's go in that once. Oh, questions in chat for me. All right. Sorry, I forgot to keep up with chat. Let's see. Dan, hey, welcome. Do you use Unity's pre-made camera objects? Multi-purpose camera rig. No, I don't think I know anything about multi-purpose camera rig. I did not use any XML parser lib. I will actually talk a little bit about a couple things real quick. The camera is just the default camera that Unity uses. When it creates a scene, it kind of gives you this camera, and it's got this camera, what's it called? The camera script already, attached, and it lets you change the viewport and change the projection, and then all that other stuff. And then I wrote a camera follow script, which I attached to it. And the camera follow script is really just a component that you give it a game object as a target, and then every time it updates, it will try and figure out where it should be. And it's got like a little bit of a leading to it, and it constrains the position around the map. And so when the level loads up, it'll call set bounds, which tells it, which areas in the level the camera can actually move, and so it won't move past the corners of the level. And then it'll set the target, which will be the player in most cases, and then it'll also try and lead and follow the player a little bit. So you can kind of see that effect. If I move, there's a little bit of lerping going on. I'm turning the gizmos off. You can kind of see it just takes like a half second for the camera to catch up. It's got that kind of lerping effect. And the other thing is that it leads the player a little bit. So if you just change directions ever so slightly, you're going to see more stuff in front of your character. So your character will kind of always be, the center of the action is going to be right in front of your character. So that's the effect of the leading. I hope that helps with the camera stuff. Let's see. The XML library is actually just the standard C# built-in XML parsing. So it's just using, for example, here, I'm just describing some classes, which are really just data structures, and I'm hinting to the XML parser what I want them to be called with these declarations right here. And then basically all you have to do is create an XML file that kind of mimics that structure. So it has a room populators object, which maps to this guy. And this guy has an array of room populators called populators, which will be this chunk right here. And then each of those populators has a name and a template and an insert value and then an array of objects. And so a single populator looks like that. And so each of those data structures is hinted to say how it should look in XML. But then all I have is this little data class I wrote. It's like a static library that just says has a function called load.xml. And all it does is it loads in the text asset through Unity. So it uses Unity's asset loader to grab the textual data of the XML, and then it uses the C#'s built-in XML serializer. I can't talk today. Serializer to just basically create that object from the XML, and then it returns an instance of that object. So we can take a look for that. So we can say, let's see, data.load. We'll look for instances where I'm calling that. So this is a IMD is not that good of an example. The room populators is probably good. So this will say, the room populators object is of this type, which is going to be this guy right here. And then it says just data load XML, and it gives it the type, which is the room populators object. And then it says pull it from the data room populators XML file. And you don't need to put the extension on there because Unity just knows how to do it magically. So I did look into a few different third-party JSON and XML parsers, and I really just couldn't find myself being happy with any of them. And I actually find the built-in XML parsing of C# pretty nice. You know, I mean, it's arguably a little bit more verbose and complicated than if I was just using object literals or JSON and JavaScript, but it gets the job done pretty nicely. So let's check it on chat again. Yeah, I'll have to check out multi-purpose camera rig. I'll see what it does. I didn't know that it existed, but I mean, that's kind of story of my life with the Unity, you know. There's a lot of stuff about it that I didn't really know. And basically what I did when I created that camera follow script was I just Googled around for Unity camera follow, and you know, went to Stack Overflow and Unity Answers and like all those different places where people had posted solutions, and everybody, all the accepted answers for those things were generally scripts that look kind of like this, you know, where you just basically create a mono behavior that you attach to the default camera. But anyways, I think it's cool that they have some built-in stuff, and I would like to look at that at some point because that does sound awesome. So yeah, if there's any more questions, I'll try to keep a look at the chat. I can't see this name. Jalapeno Bud wants to add something. If you're still around, feel free. Let's see. Yeah. Go ahead, add whatever. I try to check chat now and again, and a lot of stuff that I'm doing in Unity can probably be done in better ways, like perhaps the multi-purpose camera rig, for example. Who knows? I was a pretty staunch anti-XML person for a long time, but it is a little more verbose in some ways, but I find that I'm not as religious about XML versus JSON as I used to be. So, also the fact that it's much easier to use XML and C# than JSON. I would rather use the built-in XML parsing than have some funky JSON parsing library. And all the JSON parsing libraries I looked at, they all had some little quirks to them, like, you know, I don't know, it's just this, JSON is kind of this weird, you know, structure. And you can't have comments and stuff, which is kind of nice, you know. In XML I could have, you know, this populator, blah, blah, blah. And of course there are like JSON implementations that let you have comments or whatever, but it's just kind of a mess, so not even going to deal with that. Let's see, so what were we going to do? We got the player start going. Oh, now we were going to think about, instead of using X and Y coordinates, to use triggers. So what we might want to do here is add on so the room populator object has X and Y. We can add another field here, which we'll call trigger. And this will be interesting because this is where we're going to want to start getting heuristics into the mix and like keeping track of which triggers already have things placed on them and stuff like that, because we don't want to reuse them. But anyways, we want to say this is a trigger. This is the trigger that we want to use for this particular thing. Or, well, the way I've been doing it right now is that, because I don't want to have to put a light in every single, you know, I don't have to say each room populator shouldn't have to say, you know, there's a light at, you know, X, Y, whatever. I think that's what I was trying to avoid before. And so what I did was I just created this kind of high-level concept of rooms having lights and putting the triggers there. So maybe what I want to do is in the level builder, but in the same data structure, right? Like I'm adding those objects to here, but I also want to go through all of the triggers, perhaps, and put stuff there. So like, let's do it this way. I'm just going to copy this enum real quick. Give it its own version. Some of that stuff's going to change. Like, we don't really need this player start trigger anymore, so we'll say like to do duplicate. And then how do lights work right now? Lights. Does this have the config, the level config? I think it should. It does not. So we're going to need the level config in here too. So where's the config coming from in this place? Config equals, yeah, there we go. Oh no, we're loading the config already. Okay, never mind. I'm smoking crack. Yes. Okay. Great, so we already have the config. So all we have to do is just loop over the config and put stuff down. This thing has this place room objects function, which we really don't need for this particular instance. So we're just going to write a new version of it. Although we are going to need the thing that gives us a list of trigger positions from sprite tile that are bound by the width and the height of the map. Cat is being annoying. And for that, let's see, get trigger positions, where are we calling that? So we're going to need the sprite tile room offset there again. Do we have that? I don't think this piece of code necessarily knows about that. Oh no, it does. It has that information already. I copied it over. Okay, great. Okay, so really what we can do is we're just going to move this function over, and we'll probably end up deleting it from here later. But basically this is just a wrapper around sprite tiles trigger stuff that allows me to only target a subset of the map when I want to know what triggers are in a given area. And it puts them in a nice little list so that I can then remove them from the list if necessary. So what we can do here is, so this is where it populates the room, puts the stuff in, and then before we add the custom room objects, we'll do like the default room objects like the lights. So what we'll do is we'll create a list that is made up of int2. Int2 is actually a data structure that is native to sprite tile, which is really just, it's kind of like a vector, but it's a pair of integers instead of floats. And since everything in sprite tile uses integers instead of floats, it's kind of handy. So we're just going to create a new list of int2s, and then we'll be able to pass that around. And so what we'll say is get trigger positions. Maybe I was already using get trigger positions. Oh, I was. Oh man, my head is like all over the map today. Apparently I already added that function last time we were working on this thing. But I saw that I had called it just right here. So get trigger positions, and this is going to say, we'll have to cast it to an int. We'll say, oops, it's going to be triggers dot lights, and then we're going to say new into room offset x, and then sprite tile room offset y, and room height, no, room width, room height. Room height, yeah. So I should populate this list of positions as int2s with all of the triggers on the map that match this particular number, which in the case of lights is 2. And then, oh, we already have this position int2, so let's do that. So I'll say for each into, say, light pos in positions, because I don't think I can declare, the same variable twice. I like in JavaScript how you can just have, for var I is equal to blah, and then later you can say for var I is equal to blah, and it's just fine. It doesn't care. C# cares. It's not cool with that. So anyways, for each of these, we won't bother trying to put, trying to randomize how many and which positions they are. We're just going to loop through all of them and put a light there. So for each of the positions in this trigger, we're going to say room.addObject, and then we're going to say it's going to be random.choice of config.lights, which will just give us a random light prefab string, and then we'll say it's going to be light pos.x and light pos.y. So theoretically, we can do this exact thing. We could probably turn this into like a little generic function that will do that for decorations and stuff too. So let's see if that actually works. Nope. And no overload for get turn takes 4 arguments. Really? Oh, right. I have to pass in the positions list as by ref. And then it should work. Great. Great. Whoa. Oh, I see. These lamps are offset wrongly. Let's see. Yeah, let's look like where they're supposed to be. Because the triggers are coming back as absolute positions, or as positions relative to sprite tile. So really, what we're going to do here is, instead of changing this up, here, maybe we'll just make this the responsibility of this, just put it at the right spot for sprite tile. So object X, object Y, and then in here we already have the same variables. So when we're creating these objects, really this is where we need to make it happen. So we'll just grab that, and we'll do that translation right here. And then so instead of object X, we'll say X and Y. Maybe it would be better if I just followed sprite tile's crazy Y convention. See, except for that, it's just not the correct place right now. Offset X, Y, and then we just spawn it where it's supposed to be, the object, the X, and the Y. Let's see if our lamps are spawned in the right place. Oh, well, that looks right. That looks a lot better from the lighting perspective. All those lights are in the right spots. So like for these rooms, basically in sprite tile, for this particular room configuration, I said that the lights are supposed to be 2 lights in these little nooks, and then for the empty room template, they're supposed to be in the corners. So that looks like it's working absolutely fine. So it's still a little, yeah, like sometimes this player start is just not in the right spot. That's way off in the boonies. Also, that house map looks like it's in the wrong spot too. But I guess it's using the same logic, so that makes sense. Well, it's definitely some debugging I have to do with the translation. So, to do fix, object position translation. I guess what I could do is just make the data reflect the fact that it's, the origin is in the lower left and instead of the top left. And then everything would just be a lot easier probably. So maybe I will do that for next time. For now, I'm probably going to check in with chat. Hey, a lot more stuff. Oh, thank you. Jalapeno Bud says the game looks good. We definitely appreciate that. Yeah, so the game is procedurally generated. Basically, I use Sprite Tile. So Sprite Tile is kind of a static map editor, and so I create these rooms of various kinds. And I have this notation, which is using bitwise math, which I won't really get into now. But really, the important part is that there's a bunch of room templates that have different shapes and sizes and exits, and so the way that they're organized is such that I know which rooms exit or border which other rooms or which templates. Like it's kind of like a big set of puzzle pieces, and then I go through and then I procedurally generate a map of rooms, which is kind of agnostic of sprite tile. It's just saying I want to create a dungeon, and the dungeon starts here, and you move this way, up, down, left, right, and there's the end. And so it creates this data structure of this dungeon, and then there's a separate piece, which is that level builder code that I've been working on, which then takes that dungeon path and turns it into a sprite tile level using those kind of pre-generated rooms. So it'll say, okay, the dungeon says there's a start here, and the start has an exit to the north, and then the next room above it has, exits to the south or to the east and the west. And so it'll pick the right room template, right puzzle piece to put in those spots, and that's how it generates the room. So you can kind of see, from the colliders how that's working out. There's like a room with like a block in the middle, and then one with kind of these weird L's, and it randomizes the interiors of the room as well. So the first step is randomizing or figuring out which puzzle piece fits the path for the dungeon, and then the second piece is then randomizing kind of what the room contains in the middle. That's how that works. Let's see. Yeah, so the 2D toolkit I looked into, I think 2D toolkit was around before the Unity 4 introduced like kind of more native 2D stuff, and so I think the 2D toolkit still kind of sits on top of the 3D Unity stuff, which, Unity's native 2D stuff still sits on top of the 3D stuff, but it's like one fewer layer of abstraction. Let's see. Yeah, Dan's got it right. Git, commit, ship it. Push live. Done. Yeah. Anyways, I'll hang out for another 5 minutes. Probably I'm going to end at 7:15, I think, because, I'm still not feeling super great. I gotta give my throat a little bit of a rest. Can't go the full hour and a half this time, but plus it kind of does seem like E3 is stealing the show today. That's what I'm going to say. It's not because I'm boring. It's because E3 is stealing all of my audience. Probably talk about the next steps really is to kind of just keep moving over some of that stuff I did with object placement into the new world of my level builder code. So the next thing will be like decorations and stuff like that. In fact, we could probably do that real quick. It's probably going to be just as easy as copying this, and then we'll need to rename this variable because I do. Because I do, and then we'll say config.decorations, and then this needs to be triggers.decorations. Anytime you find yourself copying, pasting, and changing two variables, you need to go into a function, which we will do. Not to worry. But now you can see that we have something that looks a little bit closer to what we started with earlier today, which is that all the rooms have lights in the appropriate spots, and they have these statue decorations kind of randomized. The placement isn't actually randomized; they're all kind of very specific according to the template, but which statue is put in that particular location is randomized. So sometimes you get the one looking down, sometimes you get the one looking straight. Another thing that I want to do in one of the config files is kind of give it a limit or a threshold or like a ratio or a density of how many of those spots should be filled up with stuff. So for example, you don't always want all four corners to have. That's really weird. Oh, I'm in the middle of the pool. Well, you don't want all four corners to have two statues in each, right? Like, and part of that is just in Sprite Tile. When I was creating these rooms for real, I would probably put the decoration triggers in a little less consistent spots. But the other thing is that I would want to say, okay, this room has a potential of 6 decoration spots. For this particular level, I want it to be dense with decorations or sparse with decorations or whatever. And so I'm going to only fill 80% of those or 30% of those or 1 or whatever. There's a lot of ways you could go about making that field sparser or denser. Yeah, everybody's too busy buying AWL during the Steam summer sale, so thanks for your support, hopefully. So I'll mention it again, AWL is under $5 in the Steam summer sale. And if you haven't picked it up, you should totally do it because it's an amazing game. No bias whatsoever. And if you like the game dev Unity stuff, be sure to subscribe on Twitch, twitch.tv/LostDecadeGames. And I always export the videos to YouTube as well, so it's youtube.com/LostDecadeGames as well. And so you can follow us on both of those places and watch these videos, and you can also show up live on Twitch at Mondays 6 p.m. Pacific. And I want to thank people for dropping by. It's always nice to have comments and questions because I love talking about the ins and outs of programming. It's always fun to get tips and tricks too because I'm pretty new with Unity, all things considered, and I don't know about things like multi-purpose rig cameras or whatever. So thanks for that, Dan. I will definitely check that out. And thanks for stopping by, and we will see you next week. Ship it.